our panel on strategizing for multinational innovations. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Oded Salomy from Visa Europe, Collab, Israel, and also Ariella Grinberg from the GM Advanced Technical Center here in Israel, working on smart cars, and also our moderator, Frenkel, Senior Tech Correspondent for Channel 10 News. So thank you very much.
Okay, so Shalom, Nim Hao, Roman Juan Yingnin, CSN Dalai. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the friends from Israel, China, and elsewhere. And our panel is about strategizing the multinational innovations. And I want to welcome here Joe Pearl from IBM. He'll be here in a few moments. Ariella Grinberg from General Motors Advanced Technical Center. She's the Innovation Manager. And Oded Salomy, who's the General Manager for Visa Europe, Collab, Israel. How are you guys? Yes. So first of all, Ariella, tell us a little bit about your role in General Motors.
Can everybody hear me this way? No.
All that far.
Okay. How about now? Okay, great. So my job is to be the facilitator, the liaison in Israel for finding interesting innovations within the local ecosystem and bringing them into General Motors. And let me tell you maybe a little bit about what we do in Israel, although my activity doesn't have to relate only to what we have here. But it's important, I think, to know that General Motors is the first automaker to have an R&D center here in Israel. And our facility here is the only one next to the one in China that has R&D activity outside of Detroit. What we do here, and we've been doing it for a little over 6 or 7 years, is looking for innovations around what was considered non-traditional automotive technologies, so mostly focusing on the software side, going into the future challenges of the industry, if it's connected vehicles, autonomous driving, cybersecurity, user experience, and also looking at the broader challenges of the transportation industry and how an automaker fits into that, so going into urban mobility and mobility apps, excuse me, things like that. And going back to that, so I look for companies and innovators that have talent in sectors or verticals where the automotive didn't historically fit in. It can be sensing, computer vision, cyber, which I mentioned, user experience, and various other segments. Do you want me to talk a little bit about China, or should we do that first?
Yeah, maybe tell us a little bit about, we all know that two of the biggest exits in Israeli tech history, Waze and Mobileye, are both in the automotive ecosystem. So how did you decide to come to Israel? Why Israel?
So hopefully, I think I don't have to make the startup nation pitch to everybody in the room. I think everybody knows that. But I think we need to give a lot of credit to General Motors for acknowledging that advantage early on. And I mean, going back to the history, there was General Motors has been active in Israel in over a decade through its local dealership, doing mostly scouting. But there was a joint circumstances of that led to the with the support of the Office of the Chief Scientist, by the way, that are able to initially open the site. And since then, we're just growing and growing because, like I mentioned, as I mentioned, we don't do traditional automotive. So the next engine technology is not likely to come. It can, but it's not likely to come out of Israel. It'll come out of Detroit, Japan, Germany, those hubs. But it's hard to find good data scientists and good people who know how to manage algorithms and computer vision and many other technologies that come out of the Detroit area, and even Silicon Valley for that matter. It'll be tougher to find the right talent there than it is here, and so we're going to continue to grow. And the two companies that you mentioned are a great example. Mobileye is a game changer in the industry and a great pride for Israeli innovation. And GM was a big partner in making that revolution happen, and we're collaborating with Mobileye from the start and growing on that collaboration. Waze is a terrific example for the type of innovation that we're looking into, and I think the next few years are going to be very interesting as the new transportation era comes into place. It's going to be a very dynamic. A lot of companies are going to come out, and they're going to try to change the way that we commute.
You're talking about the autonomous car, right?
The autonomous car is an enabler in that revolution and the connected car. But there's a lot of room for business model innovation as well. The way that, which is basically what Waze and Uber and companies like that are doing. And they have a different challenge in different geographies. So Waze, Uber, and the others are not always going to do as well in Israel and in the U.S. and Europe and other sectors as they're going to do in China. And GM has a lot of presence in China, so a lot of our activity there is focused on taking the challenges that we know, but having people there that are looking to adapt into how the local buyers and the local consumer wants to consume or wants to commute.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later on about the maybe connection between Chinese R&D centers and Israeli Chinese R&D center. But Oded, tell us a little bit about Visa Collab. What is Visa Collab?
Thank you. Very nice to be here. Nice to see many familiar faces in the audience. It certainly seems to be a cohesive ecosystem in Israel. My name is Oded Salomy. I'm the head of Visa Europe Collab in Israel. What is that? So Visa Europe set up an external innovation arm called Collab, stands for collaboration, because we can't really innovate without collaborating with external companies, usually startups. We have hubs across the Europe region. We have hubs in London, Tel Aviv, and Berlin. This is quite new. We started in January in London, June in Tel Aviv, and July in Berlin. What we do is we look for technologies that will innovate the payments, that will disrupt the payments ecosystem. It could be technologies that might be quite threatening to us and that we'd like to understand and perhaps embrace. And it could be technologies that would just improve the way we do things. And that cuts across really so many industries, because if you think about it, any industry really includes payment. Either you buy something or you get paid. And we have a few categories that we've set up that interest us. So that includes authentication, or what we call authority to use. If you think about when you buy something, people want to make sure that the payment method that you're using really is yours, that it really is you. So we've seen some very interesting technologies in authentication. We saw a company that identifies you by your breathing. We've seen companies that identify you by your heart rate, all kinds of crazy stuff. The second one is big data. So we think about big data from the consumer's perspective. We call it me to be. So if a consumer is happy to surrender her or his personal data in order to receive some benefits, perhaps a targeted offer, or perhaps a smoother payment experience, then that interests us. And there are many big data plays in Israel as well. Blockchain, which is the technology that underlies Bitcoin, cryptocurrency solutions. We've met a lot of interesting companies. There was recently a conference on blockchain in Tel Aviv, just I think last week or 2 weeks ago. I also spoke with William. I understand there's an interesting technology coming from China in that space. And then we're also interested in the consumer experience. So anything about how you pay online, how you pay offline, in the store, virtually in the store. So a lot of us take our phones down to the stores. Maybe we'll use an app in the phone in order to pay. Anything affecting the way you buy, before you buy, while you buy, after you buy is very interesting for us. And the last one is what we call smart cities, which is quite broad. It includes Internet of Things, it includes connected car, includes connected home, because we believe all these things will enable payments. We believe that a driver will authorize his or her car to buy fuel before they get to the fuel station. In fact, the car might be searching for the least expensive fuel solution. And similarly, the driver may ask its car when they should get maintenance, and the sensors of the car will inform that decision. So anything relating to this connected world that is emerging is quite interesting for us.
We're living in the age of disruption. Is your company, we're living in the age of disruption. Does your companies are afraid of being disrupted?
I would say that I don't think we're afraid. I think that the auto industry is facing a fascinating new phase. After having not a lot of innovation for decades, we've seen a bunch of developments over the past 2 decades or so, and autonomous driving and the features that are already enabled in the semi-autonomous drive cars that are out there are part of it. But looking ahead, it's not only technology that's going to change. The dynamics of the market are different. It's not the same market in a way. The OEMs used to compete with each other, the big companies, and we're definitely aware that new entrants like Google and Apple and Tesla and Uber and Waze, for that matter, are coming into our space. I think it'll be right to say that initially the industry looked at them with almost trying to diminish their efforts, but I think that's not the case now, and it's not going to be the case in the years to come. Hopefully there'll be real competition and collaboration.
Okay. Same question.
Are we afraid of disruption?
Yeah.
Well, I think it depends on where in one's psychology you explore, right? So we all say no, we're not afraid of innovation. In fact, we embrace innovation, and we are embracing innovation. We have to embrace innovation. Are we doing that because it's the easiest thing to do? No. The world has become much more complicated. There are many startups and new technologies out there that certainly threaten our space. And that's everything from retail banking, lending, to payments, shopping, the shopping experience. And we recognize that I think this goes across all industries, and it certainly applies to finance and fintech and payments, that if we don't embrace these new ways of doing things, then we might become irrelevant, and therefore we want to be there first. If there's a technology that could replace the current infrastructure, we would like to be part of it. So you hear both discussions, people kind of sometimes wonder, well, where is this leading to? But on the other hand, it's really fun. I mean, we're having a lot more fun than we've ever had. I had, for 5 years, I was country manager for Israel and Malta, doing the core business, managing visas operations. The clients and the credit card companies were in Israel were our clients, and they're great people, and they do great work, and that generates all our revenues. But I must say, in the last 6 months, since I took the current position, the dimensions, the concepts that I have encountered are so fascinating, so different from anything that I've ever imagined. It's really quite cool. And that's the reason that everybody in the core business wants to be part of innovation. I think that cuts across all companies. Not only do we get better food, better furniture in the office, we also get a more interesting intellectual experience.
Let's talk about the Chinese strategy. First of all, you mentioned that you have also an R&D center in China. Is there any connection between the Chinese R&D center and the Israeli one? And what are you focusing on in Israel and in China, and what are the differences?
So I think I touched a little bit about the fact that China and Israel are the only sites outside of the U.S. where General Motors has R&D facilities. The operation in China is different than Israel. GM has a big presence in China, and not only R&D. There's manufacturing, engineering. There's substantial collaboration with the government that enables all these activities, and R&D is part of that activity. The R&D center in China is mostly focused on adapting the technologies to fit into the Chinese market. And generally speaking, they're also more oriented towards some of the more basic, what we call traditional challenges, but that's not all-inclusive. They also deal with R&D that's around user experience and connected vehicle, and we mentioned being big data. So we're not an internet company, but we definitely would want to see ourselves as a data company. And the connected car is going to create so much more data than before. And GM has an advantage in that space because those who are familiar with OnStar, our connected car system, which we've had on the roads since the early 2000s, enables us to have an advantage in that sense. Our site in Israel deals a lot with those challenges and the new opportunities that open up. Like I said, we're focused on what we consider non-traditional, bringing a lot of the smarts into the car. Maybe I'll mention a little bit. We have a few groups that are working within our R&D site. One's doing vision and sensing, mostly looking at the challenges of autonomous driving. We have a group looking at connectivity and all the challenges that the autonomous car, but not just, will have coming into the future. A group that's looking at user experience. That varies from speech recognition to the way we design a car where it's a driverless car. So we have to think about those things. We have a group that's focused on smarts and control, which is somewhat related to the traditional sense. And the opposite of connectivity is threat. So we do have a growing cyber team. And in terms of the collaboration, we're part of a big multinational company. So there's an ongoing discussion, and we're aware of what the others are up to. To some extent, I would actually say that the user experience teams have a lot to work on. Surprisingly, some of the insights that come out of the data analysis that we've been doing here in our site in Herzliya have had a significant impact on the work that they've been doing in China, and this is without having to actually know the language and the users. Just looking at the data, they came out with interesting insights related to speech recognition because we have the best scientists in that field. So there's the back and forth on some issues.
Okay, and even though Visa Israel is part of Visa Europe, what is the Chinese strategy in your department and in general?
So yeah, we're Visa Europe, which is separately owned by Visa Inc. We're going through a merger now. If all the regulatory approvals go forward, then I'll be in a better position to make a comment about what Visa Inc. thinks about China. However, hello, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
However, the one comment I would make about the Chinese environment is, finance is quite a regulated space, right? So if an entity wants to come into a new market, the regulator needs to enable that, to welcome it, to make it possible. So we have quite some challenges in the Chinese market in that sense. And therefore I think it's harder to get a better understanding of, without being there, it's harder to get a better understanding of what technology initiatives are coming out of that market. And we also heard from William earlier today that, there's probably less software and math coming out of China than there is perhaps hardware and hardware initiatives, which might explain the GM perspective being more favorable. So, from my little world here in Tel Aviv, I don't quite see as much in everything that I'm reading and seeing coming out of China, but that might be because, it's not published in the Western press.
In one sense, I think that you do have competition coming from China because there's lots of money pouring into the Israeli tech business from China. Do you see any competition between you as somebody who's funding startups and Chinese bodies that are coming into Israel?
Well, I'm in a different position because Visa Europe does not invest in startups.
Mm-hmm.
We provide them access to our systems, to our people, to our rules. We try to do proofs of concept with them and enable them to do that with our issuing banks and our acquiring banks. So in that sense, actually, I see that as an advantage because the more money startups have, the better position they are to work with us.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about the cultural gap between China and Israel. From what you see, what are the biggest challenges for Israeli entrepreneurs when dealing with China, as far as you know?
Well, I can answer it based on personal experience, not having to do anything with Visa. I worked at a company called Modu, which is a startup that is not with us anymore. But Modu was designing a modular phone, and manufacturing was taking place in China. So one of the challenges was very much about communication. It sounds like a silly thing, but it really got down to several times. Modu was a startup, very well funded, $120 million, but still, often we had to send people to Shanghai in order to have face-to-face discussions, because whether we were doing it on Skype or a phone, it didn't matter. Until you got in the room, you really just couldn't work out, something as simple as a term sheet. Maybe it's not that simple. But.
I definitely think there are challenges, and some of the facilitators that were here today are trying to bridge those gaps. In terms of GM, what we did was just try to reach out to the local facilitators and have them come into GM. So we're not having the designers and the engineers back in Detroit thinking about what a car that's supposed to ride the streets of Beijing or Shanghai is going to look like. There is a lot of adaptation needed, and there is an automatic adoption of all the trends that take place outside of China. So I think there's a big emphasis on trying to reach out to the local experts and having them delve into the processes needed. Doing that with leveraging all the strengths and capabilities of the big corporate that GM is.
Okay.
And maybe just about on the investment side, so GM does have a ventures group, and we definitely, when we look at investment, we do that in Israel as well, but we look for the right opportunities elsewhere as well.
Yeah, the other comment I would make is that we're fortunate now in Israel to have more and more people who have experience working with China. Ted Moore is giving sponsorship to this conference now, and they have an office in China. There are many consultants that are going back and forth. So, obviously success breeds success, and the more this happens, the larger the China-Israel ecosystem will be. But I think for an early-stage entrepreneur, it would be really smart to work with people who actually have a presence there and who travel back and forth regularly and can interpret the culture.
And we'll end with the last question. As people who deal with innovation in your fields, what will the future car or the future credit card look like?
Okay, well, first I want to say something about the future car, even though I work for Visa.
Yeah.
So I've been asked to give these presentations about innovation in various markets. I was in Romania doing this last week, and I held up my phone, and I said, my topic was blurring the boundaries. I said, one of the themes we're seeing is blurring the boundaries. And I held up my phone and I said, blurring the boundaries is not about blurring boundaries between competitors or between products. It's about blurring boundaries between industries. Like, look at my phone. Is this a phone or is this a car? Is this a phone or is this a car? It actually could be a car, right? Because I could order an Uber car with this phone. So, who knows what the future looks like? I can say one thing. I highly doubt that the future Visa payment instrument will be a plastic card. It might be my breath. It might be the blink of my eye. And it might be a chip under my skin.
Right? Will we have? It's 2015, and we all saw Back to the Future 2, right? 21st of October. We should have had flying cars already. Where are they?
Highly classified information I can't share. But I think, just like Oded says, it's hard to predict the future, and I think I touched on it. I think the next decade is going to be fascinating. And a lot of our ideas are going to go out there. Some of them are going to succeed. Some of them are going to fail. I do think, despite all the new entrants that are coming into play, OEMs and General Motors definitely is going to lead in making that revolution. And it's not going to look the same, like I said, everywhere. Iowa, New York City, Shanghai, different solutions. But yes, the autonomous car driving is going to be connected, and people want to have a seamless connection throughout their digital life, and we have to enable that, and that's going to bring new opportunities for us. We might collaborate with Netflix or Amazon or definitely Visa and the likes in order to bring a lot more value to our customers.
Right. For somebody who lives in Tel Aviv, I really hope that the future car will find itself its own parking place in the future. Okay, so thank you very much, Oded and Ariella. Thank you.